Raz.
Będziemy dyskutować, będziemy szerzej mogli, nie wiem, czy Magda, właśnie Szczepańska nie narabiała i mi podzwoniła po ministerstwie i takie mam przeczucie, bo nagle jest często Ochowskim też z drugiej strony jest tydzień sejmowy, więc tam różne rzeczy rzeczywiście mogą się wydarzyć. Magda Rowińska dzwoniła w sprawie tamtej. No nic, zrobimy swoje. Tak, za sekundę wyczekam.
Raz, dwa, trzy.
Jestem. Tak, zaraz poukładać wszystko. A nie, ty rozumiem, że zaczniesz, tak? Bo mówisz, że usiądź, podejdziesz, dobra. Dobra. Dzień dobry, witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie.
Good morning, welcome ladies and gentlemen. I suggest that we start. It's 11:10, so it's high time for us to start. Welcome everybody. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome everybody to today's meeting, the conference entitled Unused Potential of Hong Kong in the Export of Poultry Meat to China. I'm the president of the National Poultry Council and I'm very happy to see you here. I would especially like to welcome our speakers, our guests that will share information concerning the potential of Hong Kong. All these important, significant information, we'll also be talking about threats, hazards, what we should pay attention to when providing export to this particular market. Unfortunately, we've just got information from Minister Kołakowski and the Deputy Director that in view of an urgent business in the Parliament, unfortunately we have a very busy week in the Parliament. There are many unexpected affairs popping up. They had to go to the Parliament. If there is such a possibility, they will join us. And now allow me to welcome our special guest arriving here from Hong Kong, Dr. Gloria Lai Fan Tam. We are very happy to have you here.
Pani doktor to niezwykle
Dr.
doświadczona,
Fan Tam is
ale też i
extremely
zasłużona dla
experienced,
polskiego drobiarstwa osoba, która
very merited for
wykonała
Polish
ogromną
poultry
pracę
business,
na
and
rzecz
she has done
dostępu
immense work
polskiego
to
mięsa drobiowego
provide
do
access
rynku
of
Hongkongu.
Polish
Jest
poultry
można
meat
powiedzieć
to
takim naszym
Hong Kong.
ambasadorem,
We
za
might
co
say she's
serdecznie
our
dziękujemy.
ambassador, so we are very thankful to you.
Pani Gloria, jestem przekonany, przedstawi
I'm
wiele
convinced that
ważnych,
Dr. Gloria
ciekawych
will
informacji
present
na temat tego
lots of
rynku,
important
dla
information concerning this market and will outline
rozwojowe, ale
some
też
opportunities for
będzie
development.
czas do
But
tego,
there
żeby
will
z panią
also be
doktor
time to
porozmawiać,
talk
żeby zadawać
with
pytania
Dr.
do
Gloria
wszystkich
one-on-one,
państwa.
to ask questions,
Bardzo
so
serdecznie,
I really encourage
zachęcam.
all of you to
W
do
dalszej
it.
części w programie mamy
Further in the
wpisane szanse i
agenda,
wyzwania dla
we
eksporterów
have
na rynek Chin. Niestety
chances
Magda
and
Czerwońska
challenges
nie
for
będzie mogła z nami
exporters to the Chinese
uczestniczyć,
market.
stąd
Unfortunately,
też więcej
Magdalena
czasu
Czechońska
mamy
will
dla
not be
pani,
able to join
doktor,
us,
dla państwa
hence we'll have more time for Dr. Gloria to talk about
Hongkongu, o wyzwaniach
Hong
i
Kong, about the
możliwościach,
challenges,
jak najlepiej,
opportunities, and
funkcjonować
how
na tym
best
rynku.
to operate on this
W
market.
dalszej części mamy zaplanowane
Further
wystąpienie
on,
Pawła Mejera, doktora
we
Pawła Mejera,
have the
zastępcę
presentation of
głównego lekarza
Dr. Paweł
weterynarii,
Meyer,
wymogi sanitarne i obowiązki
Deputy
eksporterów drobiu do
Chief
Hongkongu
Veterinary
w świetle
Officer,
wprowadzanych
who will
obostrzeń
be
i
talking about
zakazów.
sanitary
I wreszcie,
requirements and duties
ostatnie
of
wystąpienie
poultry
to
exporters to Hong Kong and China.
gospodarka handlowa
And the
świata
last
i
presentation,
brama do
Hong Kong,
pani
the sixth
Anna Dowdiało,
economy of
Hong
the
Kong
world
Trade
and Gate to
Development
China.
Council, biuro w Warszawie. Witamy bardzo,
Mrs. Anna Dowdiało, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, office in Warsaw. Welcome very much.
Pozwólcie, że ja w kilku słowach dosłownie
Allow me
przedstawię
to
naszą organizację, ale
introduce
też,
our organization
projekt, w
in a
ramach
nutshell, but
którego
also a
konferencja
project
jest organizowana.
which this conference is a
Otóż
part
większość
of.
państwa, miała już
Most of
styczność
you
do drobiarstwa,
have
ale
already
tak
met
tylko
with
dla
the
początku
National Poultry Council. I'll just say that we've been operating for 30 years. We are the leading organization representing the poultry sector, representing it before the national administration, the EU administration, but also we attempt to lead very proactive policy in terms of sales, marketing, promotion of Polish poultry in the European Union, but also in many international markets, global markets. Hence, today's meeting, we represent about 70% of Polish poultry producers, 90% are exporters of the meat. We are an active member of international organizations. First of all, the AVEC organization, it's an EU organization, association of poultry producers from all member states, and I have the pleasure to be the chairman of this organization. The times are very dynamic, so to say. A lot is going on at the EU level, implementing the Green Deal, the policy from the field to the table, and the requirements concerning the welfare of poultry are one of the first that the European Commission wants to change. Therefore, we might say that it's quite an intense time, not only here at the national level, but also at the EU level. And we want to present to the decision makers, to the Commission, to the Parliament, our point of view. We want to present our point of view because we observe a lot of unjust presentations and some pressures of some organizations, some pseudo-environmental organizations that would like to liquidate the production. We need to fight to show our point of view, to show a different perspective, because today we are talking not about the European Union, but about the Hong Kong market. And please believe me, the global perspective and the perspectives of the EU, these are two quite different perspectives. Recently, I've been at a conference in Bangkok organized by a global poultry organization, and we were presenting all of these plans of the European Commission concerning the sustainable production, all these limitations that the European Commission would like to impose. Additionally, what we've heard from the FAO director is that it's easy to speak about sustainable production when your stomach is full. These are challenges to provide food for people. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should not talk about sustainable production. This is also our goal, and we are doing this. And together with AVEC, we've prepared a Charter of Sustainable Development in order to demonstrate that today's challenges are not foreign to us. But this needs to be done with common sense. So the participation of the National Poultry Council in this is very important because it allows us to show our Polish point of view on a broader scale. As far as the campaign itself is concerned, we might say it's a continuation of a campaign that has already been carried out in the years 2016-2019. It has been launched in 2021 in January, and very soon the information spread about COVID, about the pandemic, so we had to cease our actions because the campaign is based on direct contact, whether it's on target markets in Hong Kong, China, Japan, or through this campaign would like to invite representatives of these markets to our country. But at the time when we had COVID restrictions, where we couldn't use planes, we preferred to suspend it and wait until we are able to implement this campaign the way we wanted it to in the first place. So I'm happy that we can relaunch it and start carrying out these actions. And the purpose of the campaign is the increase in poultry sale in target markets, but we also want, through all these activities, we want to raise the quality, the standards in the European Union, because we have nothing to be ashamed of. These standards are very high, which is also reflected in the price, and it would be good that consumers in these target markets have knowledge about it. So on the one hand, the campaign is aimed at increasing the sales, so we want to approach the entities that deal in trade, to HoReCa, to all these who are interested in buying poultry, but also we want to build consumer awareness in target markets. As far as what is ahead of us, still ahead of us, continued monitoring of situation in Hong Kong, China, Japan. A lot of this is still going on various platforms, and we need to know on an ongoing basis what it looks like. We want to share this information with you. What we've been able to implement in 2023 is a commercial mission to Japan, taking the opportunity of a food fair in Tokyo. We had very interesting meetings, and what is interesting is Japan, after many years, agreed to dividing sales by regions. Is very important from the perspective of our cooperation and the opportunities for sale on this market. In August, we are planning to participate in HKTDC fair in Hong Kong. All of you who are interested, you are invited to join us at this stand during these fairs. Next thing, webinars for representatives of industry organizations from China and Hong Kong, commercial mission to Japan in November 2023, participation SMTS fair in February 2024, finally study visits of representatives of our target groups from Japan, from China, from Hong Kong, here in Poland. All this still ahead of us as part of this campaign. I'm convinced that all these measures will allow us not only to understand well all these markets, but it will also contribute to us being able to increase sales, especially because Japan has also agreed to the process of regionalization with Hong Kong, and we will be discussing this today as well. This slide contains a number of information concerning the potential of Hong Kong, why it's worth being there and exporting poultry to there. But we will still this will still be discussed by my colleagues, so I wouldn't like to repeat the same information because my fellow speakers will present it way better. So now I would like to invite you to the seminar, and now I'll ask Mrs. Gloria Lai Fan Tam to take the floor.
Presentation, PowerPoint.
Just hold on, I just want to make sure where your presentation is. Ogłosił prezentację. Czy ktoś tu jest? Poproszę o
We are waiting for the PowerPoint presentation. Our technical staff is going to help us.
Yep.
I just press this one?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, all the way. Jindori. For China, good morning is 早上好. And in Hong Kong, we say 早晨. Well, the reason for saying good morning in 3 languages is because I think these 3 languages and their country are going to be the focus of this morning's exchange. I regard this occasion as an opportunity for exchanges. I tell you my story, you tell me yours, good or bad. See whether together we can improve on the situation so that your foods can go into that part of the world. They can enjoy good and quality food. And on the other hand, the Polish farmers and the trade can do better business. Okay? So anytime that you have issues to raise, concerns or whatnot, just raise your question. It's interactive. With your permission, President, I want to make the occasion more sort of casual.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because sitting in a room to have to listen to somebody who you meet for the first time for 1 hour is very difficult, at least for me. So casual. So I must thank you again, President, and all members for inviting me all the way from Hong Kong. It was a 20-hour flight, so not that close, but of course the world is getting smaller and smaller. It's going to be a very memorable occasion for me because this is the first time since the 2020 pandemic that I travel to Europe. So Poland is my #1 destination.
That's good.
So thank you again. I thought I knew Poland a bit because this is already the 3rd time I've been to this country since my first time was in 2013, exactly 10 years ago, and this is the 3rd time. I came for the 2nd time as a guest of your Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2019. I came to this building and I met with the CVO, and we discussed a bit, amongst other things, also about avian flu, and I tender my personal advice, which we will come back later on. Does anybody want me to speak a bit more slowly? Oh, am I right? Okay. Anytime you have issues, just okay. So I thought I knew Poland a bit until yesterday. I had quite a long journey from Hong Kong to Warsaw, much longer than the previous ones, because of chaos happened along the way. First of all, it was my first time to use Lufthansa, so I connected in Frankfurt. Little did I realize that from the Frankfurt arrival gate to the Warsaw departure gate, it took me some 2 hours. 2 hours, because you had to queue for all the passports, the luggages, and 101 things. And the airport is big. The airport is big, so quite a journey. My first time, because previously I took either Cathay to connect in London or Finnair to connect in Helsinki. So my first time to Frankfurt. I think in the near future, I won't use that again. That's number one. Secondly, even worse, on arrival, I thought, oh, because it was already around 1 o'clock, I thought, oh, let me quickly grab my luggage so that I could go to the hotel to freshen up and have a brunch, because I didn't have very proper breakfast because of the long travel. Better? Okay. So, but unfortunately, God didn't have too much mercy on me. My luggage got lost. In fact, it never came to Warsaw. It was still in Frankfurt, not waiting for me. So I had to go to the lost and found. Will be coming today, with a bit of hope. Okay. So it took me an extra 2 hours to register, lost and found. But finally, I arrived at the hotel at around 4 o'clock, and there, pretty Margarita came to see me, and she, gave me a sort of a very brief rundown of what would the program be, the logistics, and so on. So thank you very much. So that's all about how I got here. The second thing is about the subject that we are going to exchange on today. Actually, I didn't receive the invitation directly. Not directly. It was via an organization that I was advisor to, the Chinese Inspection and Quarantine Association, actually comprising of ex-officials of CIQ and now called the China Customs. Okay, I became their senior advisor just in March this year, and apparently the NPC expressed their interest in getting to know more how Polish poultry can return. I use the word can return to China faster and better. So, and somebody I think along the way they mentioned about Hong Kong. So the association charged me with a duty. You better come to explain how things are doing in Hong Kong. So that's why I got this opportunity to come back to visit the country again. More than happy. But I still was a bit confused until I got a chance to talk to some of your representatives in Hong Kong, exchange on emails and whatnot about what exactly do you want to know. And then I saw the program. There were supposed to be another 3 speakers, aside from my colleague from TDC on international trading in general, with Hong Kong. There should be 1 person from the embassy to speak about business opportunities in China and Hong Kong, and in China, and also 1 from the ministry to speak about all the technical requirements about export of poultry to Hong Kong, basically infectious disease based. But as the person from the embassy, I think she's busy, so I think I'm supposed to take the talk a bit longer. So I think we will have roughly about an hour from now until maybe 12:25 when we break up for tea. So you will have to bear with me and yourselves for the next 1 hour, okay? Okay, so with that in mind, what I suggest to do is I will break up our dialogue into perhaps 3 parts. Number 1, we will be talking on poultry, international poultry business in Hong Kong in general, very general, okay? Secondly, I'm going to show you some trade statistics official trade statistics about the poultry business, and in particular, the EU and Polish performance, how you have been doing in the past since 2016. I choose 2016 for some particular reason. I will tell you later when we come to the tables. And then we will go through some burning questions that I received via your agency in Hong Kong that are of concern to the audience here. I attempt to, give some answers, but of course you can raise many more along the way. And then we have the rest of the time we will use for exchanges. Okay? Right. This is the first part about, poultry business in Hong Kong in general. But before we start our exchange, perhaps you would like to ask, why should I be listening to you? Who are you? I know the President has spoken a few words on that, and I pretend to understand the Polish. I pretend, only pretend, not a word. Aside from Jin Dory. Okay, so basically I'm a medical doctor, okay, and I specialize in the field of public health. Public health, even if you don't know before, I think nobody would have not heard about it with the 2019 pandemic, okay? The basic difference between public health and all the other clinical specialty, because I was an obstetrician and gynecologist before, I deliver babies until I turned to public health in 1992. I'm very old already. Next month will be my birthday. I will turn 66 next year. Next month, okay? In 92, I got the opportunity to change to public health. Now, the basic difference between public health and all the clinical practices, including obstetrics and gynecology, is in public health, you always deal with a population, a community. What's a population? Anything more than 2 is a population, by definition. So you got a small group, or a big, like this time, pandemic, the whole world. Secondly, the clinical practices, no matter how hardworking your doctor is, he will only be dealing with individual patients. You see 10 patients a day, you see 100 patients a day, you see 1,000 patients a day. You are dealing with individuals, whilst public health is dealing with community. So that's a basic difference. And I also, because of work requirement, I also took up another specialty by the vets. I'm not a vet, but I work very closely with a vet. It's called veterinary public health. The pandemic is a very good example, and the disease that bothers you a lot, avian flu, is also another example. These are what we call zoonotic diseases. Maybe you have heard about that. Zoonotic diseases are diseases which affect both animals and man. So bird flu, because it affects chickens and us, so it's zoonotic. And the other one, like this particular COVID virus, it originates from the bats, maybe through, some middle transmitters, and then end up in man. So it's a zoonotic disease. Because of work, basically, again, bird flu in 1997, so I had to study veterinary public health as well. And I have served on the WHO as well as the FAO committees on both bird flu, risk communication, as well as on zoonotic diseases. So, and I happen to be somebody, I told Margarita yesterday that I happen to be somebody who loves eating. I love food. So that's why, with my personal affection and my background, and I'm also very keen in promoting fair international trading, because at the end of the day, public health is there to make sure that you've got a healthy population, a healthy world, and which will be needed for socio-economic development. So at the end of the day, public health is to serve the world so that we can get a better tomorrow. That's why international trading is so very important. So that's why you will see later on when I come across, you know, individual country examples, that I was very eager to promote fair international trading. Okay. Now I think so much for a bit of background about who you are listening to. Then I'm going to tell you a bit about my story with Poland. I told you that I first came to this country 10 years ago, but I know Poland for a long time. Of course, as a student, you study geography, history, and so on. But my first Polish friends were actually my classmates, because I had the good fortune of studying in an international school back in the early 70s in South Wales. There's a very famous chain of international school called the United World Colleges, if you happen to have heard of that. The nearest one to Europe, I think there's one, of course, there's one in South Wales. There's another one up in the Nordic, one in Italy, and one in Hong Kong, China, US. We've got round about 17 these colleges in the world today. And I've got 3 Polish classmates. I never know how to pronounce their family name. I only know their first name. 2 girls and a boy. The boy is easy, Malik. The girl, tall girl, is called Christina. And the last one is Hauschka. So these are my good old Polish friends, number 1. Number 2 was, of course, everybody knows your musician, Chopin. Because my sister, she is a pianist. She studied music, in particular piano and percussion. That's why I know you're very proud pianist. So, you know, that's a bit about Poland and my connection. And number 3 is, that was the reason why I came to Poland in 2013. I came here to attend the, when we deal with food, you must have heard about the Codex Alimentarius. Have you? Or you have heard of OIE or WOAH, have you? Yes, yes. 2013 was the 50th anniversary of Codex Europe. So, and in that year, there was a very important conference in a place which I don't know how to pronounce. It's called Palawi. Not far away from Warsaw. I had to take a train there. It was in September, but I got caught because September in Hong Kong, boiling hot, but already very cold in Poland. So the very first hour we came down from the flight, we all went to your Westfield arcade to buy coals because too cold for us. So Poland to me now is still a very cold place. Okay. Then, last of all, again, coming to the focus of this particular exchange, was actually my duty to handle the Polish application for export of your meat, comprising of beef, pork, and mutton, and then poultry into Hong Kong. I was responsible for approving your application, and I think the first batch of your products successfully went to Hong Kong between 2015 to 2016. And you have been doing very well since then. Okay? I'm going to show you the statistics later on. Now, so that's so much about, you know, soft intelligence about myself and my Polish connection. Then I'm going to really start some business on doing business with Hong Kong, which I think Anna will cover a bit more detail later on. Basically, in Hong Kong, we were actually a founding member of the WTO. So we observe the WTO international trading rules. And aside from basically, in the area of food, aside from basically some technical requirements, or sanitary or phytosanitary requirements as stipulated in the two agreements called the SPS and TBT. We basically, respect free international trading. And we are also a free port in the sense that there's no tariff. We do not have tariff barriers, just non-tariff barriers as recommended by the two agreements that I just said, the SPS and the TBT. Basically, TBT is about the labeling requirements. And when you send your products to China, be very careful about the labeling, because in both places we do require that the items have to be bilingual. Okay, I'm sure that those people who have dealt with such have the experience which they may like to share with others who are new to the business. And secondly is about the SPS, which I'm going to talk more on. Basically for SPS, two aspects that we would be particularly focused on. One is on the drug residues, what drugs are actually not permitted and what drugs we would allow, but there's a maximum residual level that you will have to be very careful, i.e. the amount that you use, the duration that the animal would be available as food for sale. You make sure that the residual limits have dropped to a level which is no longer of risk to people who eat them, okay? And the next aspect is about infectious diseases, which recently, for Poland, there would be two very high on the list. Bird flu for your poultry, as well as African swine fever for your pork, okay? I'd just like to share something historical. Before 1997, before we returned to our motherland, as a British colony, we were not directly included in the UK delegation list, whether to Codex or to OIE. But since the changing over, since 1997, we are a member of the PRC delegation to all the Codex meetings that we have interests in, and also independent of PRC, we are actually an independent observer in the OIE. The OIE has just been renamed as a World Organization for Animal Health to complement the WHO, so it's called WAOH. OIE is now an outdated term, but their duties are very much the same, aside from the additional aspect of animal welfare, okay? So before I go a bit to the poultry import, anything that you want me to explain or you want to share? Anybody? Okay. So I will continue, okay, with your permission, okay? So now coming to poultry. I can only say this for Hong Kong. I cannot even say that for my motherland. It would be irresponsible because I did not actually have the experience because I was the one in charge in Hong Kong. Basically for Hong Kong, and so far as food safety is concerned, I've just told you that we basically observe, for foods of animal origin, we observe the WAOH as well as the Codex recommendations. These are also the only technical aspects that we would be particularly concerned. So it's very science-based. It's according to international, authoritative advice. And in Hong Kong, we are relatively apolitical. I would be very careful about politics, especially nowadays. But to be honest, nothing in this world is apolitical as such. But in Hong Kong, we are relatively apolitical because in the sense that we are no sovereignty. We are part and parcel of China since the 1st July 1997. But our motherland does give us the the status of, aside from diplomacy and military, we basically are given a free hand. A very good example will be like we also banned China's chicken from coming after the 2014 H7N9 bird flu, and vice versa, China would not allow our pork or beef to enter into the mainland without a very good safety guarantee protocol because of our foot and mouth disease status. Okay, so this is just to show you that even between the two places, we have to observe all these the basic technical requirements, and Hong Kong is doing the same to the rest of the world. Even, I mean, in Poland, in your case, back in 2014-15, when we negotiate on the import protocol with your CVO, we do stipulate requirement, particularly on labeling the drug residues. And at that time, bird flu was not a concern here in Poland. But we already, because it was a concern for us since '97. So we drew the attention to the fact that we basically observed all the, by then was OIE, disease recommendation strategies. So by the time when there were outbreaks in Poland, since I think the Polish bird flu outbreak started basically in 2018, am I right? Yeah, 2018. So by the time you had the first bird flus since 2018, I think Hong Kong has been adopting the practice of doing what we call a regionalization partial ban. Mm-hmm. Not the whole country, so long as you can reassure that others are not improved, we respect the regionalization recommendation, okay? Now we jump a bit to see some of the statistics first. This may be very small. I'm trying to test your eyesight. But I just want to show you that we take 2019 as the middle point, because towards the end of that year, there was the pandemic. When you look at 3 years before the pandemic, starting in 2016, when your products started to come to Hong Kong officially, this is the trade volume of all the chilled and frozen poultry. So this is the total volume coming to Hong Kong, according to statistics. So it's all usually about between, I would say 9 to 11. So maybe around 10. I don't even know how to say the unit, but it's quite some money. A very big volume. These are official statistics, okay, coming from our government departments, okay. But after 2019, in the last 3 years, you would see that particularly last year, it had almost decreased by half the trade volume. Initially down by maybe 20%, 20-30%, and last year was quite bad. The trade volume decreased to around about half of the usual baseline. Okay. So who were the leaders? Now this is in 2016. The reason why I choose between 2016 to 2019 is I want to illustrate to you what was the baseline like before the pandemic. Of course, you would expect changes after the pandemic, okay? Before the pandemic in 2016, the three big champions had always been, respectively, US, Brazil, as well as mainland China. Okay? These three are usually, this one is China. They have listed, this is China. Number 3. But you may like to know that number 4 was already France, because somebody asked me about the EU performance. Number 4 was France. And number 5 was already Poland, already in 2016. So that was why I said that ever since the beginning, you have been very, very forthcoming. And number 7 then was somewhere local, Japan, and followed by number 8, Thailand. You will notice that later on, these two Asian countries, Japan and Thailand, they're taking more and more important roles. I think one reason being they are much closer, and because of the logistics support during the pandemic, they are having better advantages versus Europe as well as even US. Okay? So let's see how things change. Now this is just before the pandemic year. You notice that the US had already dropped to number 2, overtaken by China. Brazil always followed closely as a number 3. The reason why US dropped was because they already start to have their share of the bird flu. There were always people who would not agree on anything but culling for all the infected birds. But ever since that, they are moving more and more towards vaccination. Okay, so their production had already decreased since the beginning in 2019. But look at Poland. You hang on to a very stable number 5, and in this case, again, just after France. France has a very long history of exporting to that part of the world. But Poland, as a newcomer, was doing very well, okay? And what's number 6? Number 6 is Turkey. No, number 6, sorry, Thailand. And number 7, UK, okay? Japan, you don't see Japan here. Oh, because Japan also had on and off very bad bird flu itself, Japan. Now this was the latest, last year's. See how the pandemic has affected. So China overtook US. Brazil always very close, number 2. And number 3 was, where's number 3? Thailand. Thailand came up. And number 4 was US. US has dropped to number 4. Number 5 is Japan. I just commented that both Japan and Thailand are, catching up. And Poland is always there as a good number 5. So as I repeatedly commented, doing very well. Here? Like this?
This is for translation. This is in English. If someone asks a question,
Later, okay.
you can hear in English.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, maybe it's time for us to tackle a bit about the questions that I have received when I was in Hong Kong. I think there were about 5 of them. So we go over before I open the floor for a bit of exchange and discussion, okay? Some of you are interested in the potential and what parts or what cuts do we especially like in Hong Kong, the trends and both the business as well as the consumer preferences. I think the statistics have shown you that Polish poultry does have a very, I would say, influential position in Hong Kong. And it's very commonly known that our trade, they have very high regard for Polish goose food. I just talked to a lady who has been exporting goose food to Hong Kong. We not only eat chicken food, but we eat goose food. And goose food are way, way more expensive than chicken food. And in Hong Kong, including the GBA areas, where basically you see a lot of what we call Cantonese. Cantonese, it's people from the province of Guangdong, okay? We eat a certain cuisine, delicacies. We love goose food and very expensive. And in Hong Kong and GBA, Polish goose food is regarded as the number one ingredient. Okay? So that's a good product that you should remember. Number one, okay? What do people on the street, consumers, housewives, that they prefer? You would see that for a long time, US, Brazil, as well as China, they took up a lot of our market share. But Poland is there as a very good old number 5. And they have a lot of confidence in Polish food. I think this is my personal gut feeling. One is European. So a lot of them do know that there is a certain EU standard, the confidence. Secondly, your taste seemed to be a bit more acceptable than the Brazilian as well as the Americans, because they found that the Americans and the US, they are just a lump of meat, not too good in terms of quality or taste and whatnot. So you found acceptance very soon after you enter into our market, okay? So that's also good news, huh? But again, I have to alert all of you to all the statistics. Is in Hong Kong, we are just a population of no more than 8 million, okay? Officially, it's 7.2, 7.3. But if you include the mobile population traveling, across the border every day, no more than 8 million. 8 million people cannot quite consume that amount of poultry. So there definitely is or are invisible secondary markets. That I would not like to dwell on because it's beyond my expertise. In Hong Kong, that part is being handled by the Hong Kong Customs. So I do not want to pretend that I know too much about that. But if you show me the statistics, I would just like to caution that you have to be very careful about when you have concerns like this, what is Hong Kong's local preferences. The data that I am sharing with you is true local data, but on the other hand, may not be able to account for all that much volume. Okay, so you have to be careful about the distortions here.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question about consumer preferences. There's always discussion and choice between price and quality. About quality, new standards, animal welfare, all those things have a significant influence on price. And how you can assess consumer preferences in Hong Kong, whether they prefer quality or price, how you assess this. Especially, I'm not sure whether such situation. I'm not sure whether such situation has in Hong Kong, at least in Europe, in 2019. When European Commission questioned EU citizens what they prefer. First was quality, food safety. Price was on the 4th position. In 2022, in October, when European Commission asked the same question, price was the most important for them because of the global crisis, etc. How you assess this situation in Hong Kong?
Well,
quality, price, consumer preferences.
I attempt to tackle again on a pre and post pandemic time scale. I think post pandemic, in a way, I must be very clear that actually the pandemic is not over yet. What's over is just the emergency stage of the pandemic. Okay, the pandemic is not over yet. So if you ask me, economy everywhere really isn't that good. Not even in Hong Kong and not even in China. Although my reading tells me that Asia is perhaps less affected by inflation than perhaps Europe and America. That's also my little observation since arrival in Europe for the past 2 days. Because I bought this chicken burger and a cup of coffee in Frankfurt. It took me about 14 euro. And just for a very, very low quality chicken burger. You won't expect that in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, maybe 1.4 euro for that chicken burger. Yeah, no way, 14 euro. You got far better choices when you go to Hong Kong. So if you ask me, post-pandemic, price is always important. That's number one. Before that, I think as Guangdong people, Hong Kong basically 90% is people from southern China. We put a lot of emphasis on what we call fresh food. Fresh to us including warm meat as well as chill. So if your things are coming in as chill, we would have better acceptance. But if everything like the Brazilians and the Americans, they are coming in as frozen, then a lot would depending on your post-thawing performance, including taste and the other. And in Hong Kong, we usually have higher regards for European productions versus Americans, whether north or south. We think that these two are too massive, too mechanical, although we trust the safety of all three. But we think that European, it's a little more delicate. So that's why in the good old days before the pandemic, you will find that once you enter Hong Kong, you quickly move up to number 6 or 5. And also, they have taken out, because of volume, it's minute compared with yours. And also true for the finish, as well, I think was for the Swedish poultry as well, because they also got import status around about that time. And of course, the volume cannot be compared with the Polish, and was just a little tiny end compared with the Americans. But they gone up as well. Especially for drug residues. Local people know that the Nordic peoples are very careful with all these. So they're very much accepted, okay? So depends on what time period you are talking about, okay? Right. And let's see. Right, so this much for this particular issue raised by some of the audience, okay? If you want to comment or raise for discussion, you can do it now or later on, okay? Chicken food, you want to say something? Not now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is exactly what the president's concern it's about. Somebody already asked what do they have to be careful when they want to have better performance in Hong Kong, even in China. Always yo-yo between price and quality. Yeah, quality, I also mean safety, especially nowadays. In Hong Kong, we never have this happen before for our lunch boxes. There is now a very popular called 2-dish lunchbox, i.e. they include 2 dishes there. Maybe one is roast pork, the other then maybe steamed fish, okay? And, a pack of rice. And such a box would be selling for roughly about 4.5 euros, which is not bad, I think, by European standard. But by Hong Kong worker standard, it's still acceptable. But that's illustrating to you how price conscious people are there nowadays. Before, never such things happened. They are called 2 or 3 dish chicken lunchbox. Okay, so now is a very sensitive time, and according to several groups of renowned economists, we would expect something like that for the international economics, maybe for the next 5 to 10 years. I hope not, but we have to, have that psychological preparation. Okay. Right, this is again something very sort of EU-oriented, which I think the figures have already told you. You were doing all right before the pandemic. Of course, far less so than the 3 leaders, US, Brazil, as well as China. But after the pandemic, because of you got, the US, Japan, they have bird flu crises and the logistic challenges. You see some of the Asian countries, Thailand and Japan, they are catching up fast. Oh, I was wrong. It was Denmark and Finland, the Nordic. They're doing quite well. Okay. But EU as a whole, in particular France, Germany, Hungary, and Netherlands, and UK, they have disappeared from the top 5 or 10. Okay, so that's something you have to take reference from. Now, again, there is question about what's this misery GBA. It's what we call a special economic zone comprising of 9 cities within the Guangdong province that I just repeatedly mentioned. It's a special 11, I beg your pardon. It's a special group of cities, including usually called 9 plus 2, meaning 11. The 2 includes Hong Kong and Macau, the 2 special administrative region. The central government wants to develop this 11 to be a sort of special economic region where it's basically more open, more developed, more trade friendly, and insofar as possible when safety issues are not compromised, to be less restrictive. So some of you have already asked me whether there's any hope for Polish products, especially poultry, to go to jump through the hurdle, entering from Hong Kong or Macau via this GBA into mainland China. My answer is no, because for infectious diseases, especially with zoonotic dimensions like bird flu, what's the other one? African swine fever. There's no way. I don't believe that the central government would be opening up this particular doorway. But on the other hand, for other aspects, I already have some intelligence that they want to set up pilot projects, opening certain designated pod areas for Polish, as well as a few other countries' restricted products, to try to go in for testing purposes, to demonstrate that you do have already tried your best to get improvement and see how the results, how the performance will be, so that one fine day they will be ready to open up, more and more. But if the trouble is bird flu, very unlikely. Okay, so the gist, if Polish poultry wants to go back to China, the still number one is you have to make sure that your bird flu situation gets controlled, whether it's through the no vaccine, disease-free approach, or the with vaccine, not this non-disease free approach. both ways, so long as they are under WAOH recommendations, are negotiable. I've been telling the president and a few colleagues that back in 1997 and 2014, when China had the H5N1 and H7N9 outbreaks, in fact, Hong Kong was the one who raised with PRC mainland government that we would require what we call compartmentalization, which is one form of regionalization approach, so that we can get the assurance that the birds are safe to come back. And they oblige. That's why we got live birds coming back after 97, but not for the 2014 H7N9. They refused because when they balance the economics, they think they come to believe that sending out chilled poultry may be more than beneficial than live birds. But in your case, it's you haven't got the live poultry option. That's why you should always be concentrating on on chilled or frozen poultry. Okay, chilled poultry it's a good option for the market, especially for the consumer markets, because as I've told you, we have very high preference for fresh food, not for the commercial sector, because they are going to use all sorts of things to marinate, to cook, so they don't that much care about whether it starts as a chilled or a frozen commodity. But the consumers, the housewives, because they actually go to the markets and supermarkets, they can see for themselves whether it's a chilled or a frozen commodity. So they would make the choice there. Okay. So somebody asked me what exactly should you be prepared for for sending your poultry to Hong Kong and GBA of China. I'm still not too clear. Maybe I'd like to confirm with the president. Somebody from the CVO's office will be coming to talk late 1 o'clock? Okay. Yeah. So I will leave this technical part to him, because that office is actually responsible for negotiating with the importing partners, namely PRC and Hong Kong, on what must they do in order to send your poultry out. Okay, the minimum that they must do. As I have said, the minimum would always be WOAH based. Whether there are things additional, you have to see what threats those places are under, and they may add on as allowed by the WTO mechanism. Okay, but I won't go too much into details here, because somebody from the CVO's office will come to brief you after the break. Okay. Well, so I have more or less run through my PPTs. And you would remember seeing a sentence that I quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet. So whether you would like to do business with Hong Kong or GBA or mainland China, to be or not to be, that is the question. Okay, so I leave you to you, and thank you very much again for having me.
I think this is time to ask questions, if there are any. No questions, everything is clear.
Or maybe over tea or lunch.
Yes. Jeśli nie ma pytań, to zapraszam Państwa.
If there are no questions, I'd like to invite the coffee break, and there will be an opportunity to talk directly with Dr. Gloria.
And for sure going to be occasion for a direct discussion.
Sure.
You will
More than welcome.
You will be asked many questions, for sure.
Okay, 谢谢。
delegate to China. The floor is yours. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the organizers of today's seminar. Thank you for inviting me to participate. My name is Anna Dovgiało. I am the manager of the Warsaw office of Hong Kong Trade Development Council. Our office deals in the promotion of Hong Kong in Poland, the Baltic states and Ukraine. So now I would like to tell you about Hong Kong in a broader perspective, above the industry, why it's worth to pay attention to Hong Kong if you think about expanding your business to the People's Republic of China, in particular to the Greater Bay Area. So, Hong Kong, despite its geographically small area and 7.5 million population, is the sixth biggest trade economy in the world, and it owes its position first and foremost to its role as the re-exporter. Hong Kong is one of the biggest exporter of electronic products, games, toys, clothes, jewelry, though practically in the territory of Hong Kong agglomeration there are no production plants. The manufacturing process takes place in the mainland China, while the goods pass through, even if not physically, they pass through the Hong Kong port. They go through the companies that are active on the Hong Kong market, and this is a re-exportation to the Western foreign markets. And this path between Hong Kong and mainland China, this is a two-way road because the production also goes through Hong Kong to mainland China. Capital investments, goods. About 90% of food imported to Hong Kong is re-exported further, mainly to the People's Republic of China, but not only. Macau is also a recipient of this Hong Kong's re-exportation. Vietnam, Japan and other countries of the region. So, as I said, there is a large flow of capital investments, goods through Hong Kong, and many international corporations, in view of the safety and facilitations in business, they choose Hong Kong as their headquarters to expand further in the region. Hong Kong provides lots of facilities for business. When setting up a company, the red tape is minimal. And Hong Kong takes third position in the world as far as being business-friendly is concerned. It's also worth adding that 170 countries can access Hong Kong without a visa. Also, Poland is able to enter Hong Kong without a visa, so there are no additional formalities. Of course, there is a normal border between Hong Kong and China, so if you are planning a visit to the People's Republic of China after you visit Hong Kong, then of course you need to make sure you have a visa beforehand.
Także jeszcze z takich ważnych rzeczy to
Some
umowa o
more
bliższej
important information,
współpracy gospodarczej zawarta pomiędzy
agreement on
Hongkongiem a
closer economic
Chińską Republiką
partnership
Ludową w 2003 roku.
made between Hong Kong
wprowadza
and
ułatwienia
PRC
do
introduces some
ułatwienia w
facilities
dostępie do
in
chińskiego rynku dla
access to
hongkońskich
Chinese
produktów
market
i
for
usług.
Hong Kong products and
I
services,
zagraniczne firmy,
and
które
foreign
chcą
companies
skorzystać z tych,
that wish to
preferencyjnych warunków
these
mogą to
preferential
zrobić albo
terms
poprzez
may do so
otwarcie
either
działalności gospodarczej w
through
Hongkongu,
setting up business in Hong
albo
Kong
poprzez hongkońskiego
or
partnera biznesowego.
through a Hong Kong business partner.
Dlaczego Hongkong?
Why Hong Kong?
Na pewno ważny jest ten
Surely
aspekt
what is
tego
important
systemu
is this
prawnego i podatkowego.
Aspect of legal and tax system.
System prawny Hongkongu
The
w dużej mierze
Hong Kong
oparty
legal
jest na
system is
prawie
largely
brytyjskim.
based on the British law.
Regulacje prawne
Legal
wspierane przez
regulations
niezależne
are
sądownictwo,
supported by independent
zwiększają bezpieczeństwo
courts,
transakcji
judicial
handlowych
power,
i
ensure the
ochronę praw
security and
własności
safety of
intelektualnej.
transactions and protection of
Hongkong
intellectual property
praktykuje
rights.
zasady wolnego rynku,
Hong Kong practices the
wolna
free
i
market
liberalna,
rules,
polityka
free and
inwestycyjna,
liberal
brak barier
investment
handlowych,
policies, no
otwartość
trade
na
barriers,
zagranicznych
openness to
inwestorów,
foreign
wolny
investors,
przepływ kapitału,
free flow
niskie
of
podatki,
capital,
prosty system
low
fiskalny.
taxes, simple
W
fiscal
Hongkongu
system.
nie ma VAT-u,
There is
nie ma
no
cła na
VAT
import
in
żywności.
Hong Kong, no customs on food import.
Jedyne co jest to ogromna
The only
konkurencja.
thing that is there in Hong Kong is great competition.
Hongkong też
Hong
jest
Kong
ważnym
is
ośrodkiem
also an
logistycznym
important
regionu.
logistics center in the region.
Lotnisko w Hongkongu ma
The
bezpośrednie
Hong Kong
połączenia
airport is
ze
directly
150
connected to
krajami i
150 countries
40
and
miastami
40
w Chinach
cities
kontynentalnych.
in mainland China.
Port w Hongkongu jest
Hong
jednym
Kong
z
port is
najaktywniejszych
one of the
centrów
most
przeładunkowych na
reloading
świecie.
centers in the world.
Mówi się, że Hongkong
It is often
jest
said that
oknem
Hong Kong
wystawowym
is
dla
exhibition
zachodnich marek.
window for
Marki,
Western
które są
brands.
wypromowane
The
w Hongkongu,
brands
są bardzo dobrze
promoted in
postrzegane w
Hong Kong
Chinach.
are very well
Marka
perceived
zachodnia,
in
która,
China.
która
Western
zaistnieje
brand that
z
will
sukcesem w
become a
Hongkongu
success in
ma
Hong Kong
dużo większe szanse
has a
na
much greater
powodzenie w
chance
Chinach
to
kontynentalnych.
be successful in mainland
Większość
China.
Właściwie wszystkie zagraniczne duże
Practically
marki,
all foreign
na przykład
big
odzieżowe
brands
czy
like
kosmetyczne są obecne w Hongkongu
fashion
i tą
brands
drogą trafiają na
are
rynek,
present in Hong Kong, and
chiński.
that's their way to
Przed
China.
pandemią w każdym tygodniu
Before
Hongkong
the
odwiedzało
pandemic,
ponad 650
Hong Kong was visited each week
tysięcy
by
osób z Chin
about
kontynentalnych.
650,000 people from the
Na
mainland
Chińczyków
China.
z kontynentu przypadała 1/3 sprzedaży detalicznej
And
w
this
Hongkongu.
accounted for 1/3 of
Tymi
retail
produktami
sale in
najbardziej,
Hong Kong.
pożądanymi
The
w Hongkongu i
products that were
kupowanymi
mostly in
przez,
demand in
Chińczyków
Hong Kong
z
and
kontynentu to były,
purchased by
dobra
the
luksusowe,
Chinese people from PRC were
smartfony,
luxury goods,
lekarstwa,
smartphones,
kosmetyki
medicine,
i,
cosmetics,
odżywki i mleko dla niemowląt.
and also products milk for newborns.
Dużym atutem Hongkongu jest
A
kapitał
Great
ludzki.
asset of Hong Kong is the human capital.
Firmy hongkońskie
Hong Kong
znają
companies
kulturę biznesową
know the business
Zachodu
culture
i
of the
chińską.
West
Jest to
and of China.
niezmiernie
And
ważne
this is
ułatwienie prowadzenia
extremely
biznesu.
important. It
Co
really
ważne,
makes doing
język
business
angielski
easier.
jest,
What
jest
is important,
powszechnie używany w biznesie.
English is
Jest to
widely
drugi
used in
oficjalny
business. It's the
język,
second official
w
language in
Hongkongu.
Hong Kong.
Jakie są możliwości
What
kanały
are the
wejścia na rynek
opportunities and how to
Hongkongu? Od
enter
czego zacząć?
the Hong Kong market? What to
Przede
start from?
wszystkim
First
trzeba
of all,
zacząć od
You
znalezienia
need to start
odpowiedniego
from
partnera
finding
handlowego.
a proper
Najlepiej
business partner.
agenta, dystrybutora,
It's best to find an
posiadającego
agent,
rozbudowaną
distributor
sieć,
that has a
kontaktów i
wide
kanałów
network of
dystrybucji,
contacts
w
and distribution
Chinach,
channels in China,
kontynentalnych.
in mainland
No,
China.
Z punktu widzenia firm
From the perspective
spożywczych
of
jest to też
food
niezmiernie
companies,
ważne, żeby
this is also
był
extremely
partner,
important
który
that this
posiada
partner
dobre
has
zaplecze logistyczne, magazyny, żeby był w
has
stanie koordynować
warehouses,
na
back
miejscu,
offices to be
jak
able to
również
coordinate
działania
it on
marketingowe
the
na
spot
miejscu.
and
Ponieważ nie
also
sposób jest
provide
prowadzić
marketing
działań
activities on the spot because you
w
cannot
Hongkongu, na terenie Hongkongu bez
undertake
partnera,
marketing activities in Hong Kong without
bez
a business
partnera
partner. on the spot
lokalnego.
Without a local partner.
Zaraz, przepraszam, jeszcze wrócę tutaj, bo to,
I will come back to this slide
bo to jest ważny
because
slajd.
it's important.
Więc najważniejsze jest partner
The most
handlowy.
important
Można
thing is to have a
oczywiście,
business partner,
pokusić się i to
trade
jest
partner.
optymalna dla
Of course, the
wszystkich pewnie
optimum
droga,
solution
aby bezpośrednio
for everybody
spróbować
would
wyjść
be
na
to
taki kanał dystrybucji bezpośrednio do sieci handlowych czy
have a
restauracji.
direct
No ale
distribution
tak jak wspomniałam,
channel.
jest to ogromnie konkurencyjny rynek.
It's a very competitive market, and without a person who is there on the spot, without proper contacts, it's not easy.
Supermarketów w Hongkongu właściwie jest
Supermarket chain in Hong Kong is dominated by two big networks, Park and Shop and Welcome.
produkty też już są
Polish
w
products
sklepach.
are already present in these shops. You can also find them
759
in 759 network
i takie produkty z wyższej
chain
półki,
and
bardzo prestiżowej sieci
high-level
City
products in City Super
Ważna
chain.
jest konsolidacja producentów.
What is important is for manufacturers to consolidate their efforts to participate in economic missions, fairs, and promote themselves under a common brand.
Jeśli chodzi o targi.
As far as fairs are concerned,
Jest,
Hong Kong
głównym
is
ośrodkiem
a main
zasadniczym,
exhibition center in the region.
Jeśli chodzi o targi spożywcze, to
As far as food fairs are concerned,
targi HOFEX, które się odbywają
HOFEX fair are the most important ones. They take place every 2 years in May,
Food Expo,
and Food Expo.
edycja
And the
17-19 sierpnia.
next edition will be taking place 17 to 19 August.
Od roku są w nowym
HKTDC fairs.
format hybrydowy,
Since last year, they have a new formula, Exhibition Plus, which means that
odbywają w takiej formule tradycyjnej
the
spotkania
fair
przez 3 dni w centrum.
take place traditionally in an exhibition center, but
Taka wirtualna
additionally, there is a virtual platform, Click to Much, where for 10 days you can make virtual appointments, online appointments, and for 2 months, participants can use an sourcing platform where they can promote their products, can create a showroom there, and can make sales through their profile.
Także Polska na tych targach Food Expo jest już od 10
So
lat.
Poland has been present in Food Expo fairs for 10 years.
Pawilonu, które były koordynowane
Apart from the pavilion that was coordinated by Ministry of Agriculture,
zwykle są duże pawilony
quite often there are large promotional industry-specific pavilions.
pawilony European Meat, Flavors of
We've had European meat pavilions, Flavors of Europe,
Taste for Europe.
Taste for Europe, European pasta.
Także co roku jest
So every year
bardzo znacząca.
Poland has a marked presence at these fairs.
Że w tym
And I do hope that this year in August
jak tutaj zebrani spotkamy
we will all meet there
w Hongkongu.
at the fairs in Hong Kong.
I powiem jeszcze, może już
I will also say
o czymś bardzo ważnym. Mianowicie
about one important thing, how to prepare
wiemy, że targi są
to participate in fairs, because we all know they're important, they're necessary, but for them to bring a proper result, we need to make necessary preparations way earlier.
że na pewno jeśli chodzi o
So,
materiały,
to be sure, as far as printed materials are concerned, in moderation, handouts in English or traditional Chinese, I emphasize it because the mainland China speaks simplified Chinese and Hong Kong traditional Chinese. A lot of business cards. It seems obvious, but a person without a business card in Hong Kong is like a person without identity. It's best if they have a QR code. It is very popular at the moment, very necessary in Hong Kong.
QR do naszej strony,
A QR to our website, to our products,
próbki, testery, gadżety.
samples, testers, gadgets.
Możemy zrobić
It's great if we are able to have a cooking show, live cooking show, I also recommend that we hire a local translator, interpreter, or hostess, because there are lots of people who don't speak English, and people who don't speak English from mainland China, and making appointments way earlier, before the fair. If you are going to the fair and you already have certain partners that you would like to meet, or you're already cooperating with them, please let us know. We will invite them. We have a program hosted by us, and if they are outside of Hong Kong, we will pay for them to come to the fair. But we need to have information, contact data concerning these persons. Same regards promotion in the media. It also needs to be done before the fairs. We wait for your products, for pictures. At the moment, we've already started the promotional activities. We are sending newsletters to prospective buyers. So if you send us pictures of your products with a short description, we will move it forward so that it can start working. And at the fair, at the event, live cooking shows, presentations. At a food fair, this is mandatory. I also recommend that you participate in various networking events, some informal meetings. It's a great way to get to know and find a business partner, agent, and to make important contacts. What I would also recommend is to visit a local supermarket, just to see what products from our product group are present there, how they are packaged, how much they cost, what selection there is, and their countries of origin. It doesn't cost you anything, but is extremely important lesson. And a few words about our organization. HKTDC, we take care of promotion of Hong Kong in the international arena, and we operate through a network of 50 offices around the world. We have 13 offices in PRC, in mainland China. We organize fairs, conferences, business missions, investment missions. And so you are encouraged to contact us. Thank you very much.
Pani Anno, bardzo dziękuję. Anna, thank you very much for your presentation. Should you have questions, we will have a Q&A session after the presentation by Dr. Paweł Meyer.
Dziękuję. Panie doktorze, zapraszam.
Over to you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to meet you here during this seminar. I'm happy about that. And I'd like to say a few words about how to open new markets for products of animal origin. Speaking of so-called third countries, those who are not EU member states, we have to remember about certain regulations. In this case, it is regulation number 178/2002, Article 12, which stipulates that food and feed exported or re-exported from the community for placing on the market of a third country shall comply with the relevant requirements of food law unless otherwise requested by the authorities of the importing country or established by the law, regulations, standards, codes of practice, and other legal and administrative procedures as may be enforced in the importing country. Therefore, speaking of export from Poland to non-EU member states, it is allowed only in the case of suppliers that are approved food establishment that comply with the standards of the community market, which have hygiene packages and other requirements are fulfilled. Plus, they have to comply with the standards of the importing non-EU member state. So, depending on the country, the situation might look different in different states which are not members of EU. As regards exports from Poland, we have the Chief Veterinary Officer who has such duties as to negotiate with non-EU member states on the issues of importing. And the Chief Veterinary Officer has a number of rights and obligations. There is a veterinary inspection, and entrepreneurs have to comply with the veterinary and safety standards of the non-EU member state. And of course, an exporter has to have health certificates as regards the exported goods. If European Commission conducts negotiations as regards export requirements, negotiating with non-EU member states, they may represent EU member states, and the European Commission can negotiate this rule, and separate EU member states will not have to carry out their own negotiations. And on the website of the Chief Veterinary Officer in Poland, you will find such information if the European Commission conducted negotiations. Now, the Chief Veterinary Officer also has lists of veterinary officers who can issue and sign documents that accompany exported goods of animal origin. If European Commission represents EU member states while carrying out negotiations about requirements, these are examples of Canada and Colombia, for example. Now, how do you open up new import markets? First, the approval, and you have to fill in a lot of forms in relation to the third countries, non-EU member states. It is about safety supervision, about sanitary and veterinary requirements. You have to show an interest to export to non-EU member state, and there are health certificates that have to be compliant, and these forms are very lengthy and detailed. When you fill in the forms, you provide information. The next step would be the compliance of health certificates, and then the approval of the food establishment. And if this food establishment is approved, it will be able to export to non-EU member states. Right. There is a huge workload behind that, and we try to do everything possible so that approval of food establishment is based on the pre-listing, based on the decisions of veterinary inspections, and the establishments comply with standards of a non-EU member state. For example, to Hong Kong, to Japan and Colombia. Now, as regards health certificate, a health certificate is a document that proves, and the official veterinary officer certifies that requirements of the importing state are fulfilled. On the website of the Chief Veterinary Officer, you can find a list of requirements of a given importing state. Not all of them are listed, and some of the health certificates are under strictly controlled distribution of the documents, so some documents are secure documents, and there is limited access to some of the documents, and they are not available on the website if they have to be printed out on secure paper, for example. Okay, so health certificates. There are three major types of them. For example, bilateral statements, and then special secure health certificates, and other negotiated health certificate. Since 2011, there is an instruction of the Chief Veterinary Officer that describes in detail issues related to health certificates. If this is based on bilateral agreements, the Chief Veterinary Officer will submit the form to the powiat veterinary officer, which then may transfer to the municipal veterinary officer. And of course, the product of animal origin is checked against the criteria and the requirements, and you fill in, the certificate is filled in, and a given entrepreneur might be interested in some additional information which has to be included in the health certificate, and the veterinary officers are open to that. For example, the number of accreditation, of license, or some other additional documents that you would like to include in the health certificate, but which are optional. If it is more than required, it may be related to the fact that such supplies can be blocked at the border crossing point. But if you really need to add additional information, the powiat veterinary officer may include additional information based on the document that certifies that this information is approved. What is more, you have to declare that you are aware and you take the risk, financial and legal, of the fact that the supplies of products of animal origin could be stopped or rejected at the border crossing point. In the case of China, health certificates have their specific form. The Russian Federation has a secure health certificate printed on secure paper. So other requirements as regards certification, you have to learn about them in detail. and we don't actually encourage to add any additional information beyond what is required in the case of health certificates. If there are no bilateral agreements on the form of health certificate, in 2011 the instructions and guidelines were prepared. So if you cooperate with a company which is interested in imports, and earlier such goods were never exported from Poland to this market, then health certificate shall be produced by the authorities, offices, competent offices of the importing non-EU member state. Next, you have to translate the health certificate into Polish. Translation is to be done by sworn translator. Next, you declare in writing that you will incur legal and financial responsibility in the case of the rejection or when these goods are not allowed into the non-EU member state. In many cases, in many instances, the Chief Veterinary Officer contacts competent authorities in the non-EU member state, and they exchange information about the template of health certificate, but they not always reply to our requests. Now, as regards exports to non-EU member states, based on 460 compliant veterinary health certificates, we export to 70 non-EU member states, beef 32 states, poultry 40 states, pork 25 states, and other states. Now, as regards poultry, we have health certificates agreed upon with 40 non-EU member states. Because of the bird flu, there is a ban on poultry, which is binding in the case of China, for example. But I will say more about that later on. As regards poultry, exports of poultry, despite the ban in some of the countries, it cannot be offered if you do not produce a given certificate. This is about Algeria, South Africa, Japan, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And in the case of China, there is a protocol as regards requirements, and we have to be sure that there is no bird flu. We have to testify that, and only after that we can export poultry to China. As regards Japan, in 2020, Japan decided about regionalization of our country. So some regions can export poultry. In Philippines, there was audit carried out, so some poultry is allowed, and we are negotiating as regards the health certificate. As regards Thailand, negotiations are underway, and templates of health certificates are decided upon as a result of negotiations, for example, in the countries of Ivory Coast and Zambia and other countries listed. Malaysia and Mexico, we will negotiate about exports of poultry, and we will have to prove that there is no bird flu present on the territory of Poland. So how can we open a possibility, an option for exports of poultry to non-EU member states? The most difficult period was the period of pandemic, when there were restrictive measures and lockdowns in the fourth quarter of 21, and audits in the sector of beef, of pork, of poultry and dairy were carried out in the fourth quarter of 2021 and in 2022. And negotiations were carried out as regards 29 certificates in 2022. In 2023, audits of non-EU member states such as China as regards beef, Turkey as regards cattle, and the USA pork are carried out. Now, what are threats as regards exports? First of all, zoonotic diseases and some restrictions on export from Poland, which can be divided into two categories based on international recommendations. These are standards by the World Organization for Animal Health. And as regards further threats, the lack of regionalized approach despite certain agreements, FTA agreements, for example, as regards avian influenza. Cuba is one of the examples which does not import our poultry, and South Africa, China and Taiwan do not use approach based on regionalization. So as regards China, the import of poultry from Poland is limited and restricted, and in the case of Hong Kong it is restricted. As regards exports of poultry to China and Hong Kong, there is a document signed between the Ministry of Agriculture from the Republic of Poland and the General Administration of Chinese Customs. It is a protocol that regulates these issues, and the document was signed on the 3rd of July 2018. This is as regards inspections, quarantine and veterinary requirements as regards frozen meat, frozen poultry. Then there are a number of other documents, for example, GACC decree number 248, and one of them, number 248, is about regulations of the People's Republic of China on the registration and administration of overseas manufacturers of imported food, and also GACC number 249 as regards safety issues in the area of export of food to China. So there were some approved food establishments that could export products of animal origin, and these approved food establishments have to be registered under GACC, and the Chief Veterinary Officer of Poland referred to the competent authorities in China trying to clarify the issue of registration. So far the issue is pending, and the Chinese party has not replied yet if exports from Poland are going to be re-established. And these GACC decrees are binding on those who are going to export from Poland to China. Now, the website of the Chief Veterinary Officer, you can see the links here, where standards as regards meat in particular and products of animal origin are listed. So you can see links to the website in China and the Hong Kong website, where you can learn all the details as regards standards and requirements. Now, exports from Poland as regards poultry in thousands of euros and numbers, volumes in tons. You can see major importers. We are quite a huge player in this field, in exports of poultry. So in terms of certification, you have to comply with the standards and requirements of a given non-EU member state, otherwise you cannot export to this market. So please be careful. If you want to supply to a given country, get acquainted with their veterinary requirements, check them on the websites, and to get the knowledge about this situation. I hope it clarified the situation a little bit as regards standards and requirements in cooperation with countries which are not members of the EU. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you if there are any questions to our speaker. Was everything clear? Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be able to participate in the seminar with you. I'd like to excuse myself. I need to run to another meeting, and I already mentioned that before. Thank you very much, and I hope you have pleasant meetings. These talks, conversations outside of the main panel are always a value added, so I hope you enjoy this time together. Thank you and goodbye. One more question. Do you have questions to Mrs. Anna Dovgiało? Oh, it seems everything is clear in this seminar. If not, then on behalf... If you have no questions, on behalf of the National Poultry Council and the agency partner of promotion, thank you all for coming. We hope that you will go back to your companies satisfied, and you are warmly welcome to join us for lunch. We will all go there together, so I don't think there is a need for directions. Lunch will be served close to this building, so let's just go all together. And first of all, I would like to thank for the presentation, for coming here, our main speaker, Mrs. Dr. Gloria. Thank you very much. We are so happy that you are here.
Okay.